Hello and welcome to EOS Weekly, your weekly recap of EOS news and events. If you're looking for the Cliffs Notes version of EOS news, you've come to the right place. Please subscribe to our channel and we'll turn you into a highly informed member of the EOS community, all in 15-minute or less weekly episodes. Today is Thursday, July 19th, and the title of this week's episode is Hello World from Telos. So let's get into this week's update. In blockchain and governance news, on Thursday, July 12th, a subset of EOS block producers announced their formation of the Telos network. Telos is a fork of the EOS mainnet. For those of you unfamiliar with this term fork, it simply means that they are taking a version of the EOS.io code and making some modifications to it in order to fit their purposes. Forking code in this way is totally normal and legal in the world of open source software. And EOS is, of course, open source. Anyone can go to GitHub and see the EOS code and can create their own fork if they so desired. As long as they work within the bounds of the MIT license agreement, which is the license used by EOS, they are free to modify the code however they see fit. Their modifications will not affect the EOS mainnet code, of course. The block producers involved in the creation of Telos are EOS Detroit, EOS Metal, EOS UK, Dutch EOS, EOS Vancouver, EOS The World, and EOS Barcelona. Block producers on the EOS mainnet must get at least 0.5% of the vote in order to receive any payment. Currently, this means the top 61 block producers are getting paid, with a big drop-off in payment going from the 21st active block producer to number 22 and lower, which are the standby block producers. You can see the current ranking and how much each BP gets paid by going to eostracker.io/producers. The link is in the show notes below. None of the Telos BPs are in the top 21. And as of this video, only EOS Metal is above the threshold where they are getting paid anything at all. This means most of the Telos founders have all this expensive hardware sitting idle and they're not getting paid anything for it. Basic game theory would tell us that it was only a matter of time before a set of standby block producers would split off to form their own mainnet. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And the fact that whales were playing a large part in determining which block producers were getting voted in turned into the rallying cry for the Telos group. You can think of Telos as the no whales allowed mainnet. For anyone unfamiliar with the term whale, it just refers to single parties with a disproportionately large token ownership in a blockchain. Most blockchains run into a similar uneven distribution of wealth, and EOS is no different. Block.one is the biggest whale, owning 10% of all EOS tokens. But according to the Telos white paper, just 1.6% of EOS holders own 90% of the tokens. What this means is those 1.6% basically have total say over who gets elected block producer and who doesn't. This forms the basis for the Telos fork. And Telos do have a valid point here. Now, of course, the whales should vote in the best interest of the EOS community, because if they undermine the election process to the detrimental effect of the EOS token price, they would be among the ones losing money. However, there are some block producers who seem to have earned a top 21 spot solely due to the backing of whales. Those block producers forming the Telos network are solid technically and are strong members of the EOS community. They have a valid reason to be somewhat disenchanted with the EOS mainnet for being outvoted due to whales. Part of the reason why Block.one has decided to step into the voting arena is to help offset the whale voting. Block.one is allegedly going to vote alongside the interests of the non-whale token holders. Unfortunately, this did not come soon enough to avoid the Telos split. Telos is planning to fix the whale issue by capping token count at 40,000. If you participated in the EOS ICO, you will receive a 1-to-1 Telos token in their Genesis block up to 40,000 tokens. This is not to be confused with an airdrop. You will not see these Telos tokens in your EOS mainnet account. The Telos tokens will show up in your Telos account as the base tokens for that mainnet. Because of the 40,000 tokens per account cap, there will only be 330 million total Telos tokens in circulation at the time of their launch. This means your tokens will have roughly 3 times their weight when compared with the EOS mainnet, which has 1 billion tokens in circulation. Another thing Telos is doing to battle whale voting is something called inverse weighted voting. What this means is the fewer block producers you vote for, the less your vote counts. Only by spreading your vote across the maximum of 30 block producers do you get the full 100% voting power of your token holdings. Telos came under criticism for planning to give the founding set of block producers a 1 million starting balance of Telos tokens as payment for developing and starting the network. The criticism here is that they are breaking their own 40,000 token limit and are essentially replacing one set of whales with another. They've been backstepping a bit on that idea since receiving this criticism and are now talking about vesting those tokens over a several-year period. Telos is targeting a launch in August. The link to their press release and to the Telos website are in the show notes below. Now let's turn and take a quick look at the RAM pricing issue. Dan Larimer shared a blog post on Thursday, July 12th, with a 3-step plan for addressing the RAM price and account creation costs. First, he suggested increasing RAM supply at a rate of 1 kilobyte per block. This would be the equivalent of 64 gigabytes per year. Second, he suggested cutting the required RAM for new account creation in half, from 3 kilobytes per account to 1.5 kilobytes per account. And third, he announced an iOS wallet being created by Block.one, where account creation would be free. The link to Dan's blog post are in the show notes below. The RAM price did go down a bit in the days following Dan's post, but since then has gone back up a bit. The price continues to be much lower than the high set at 0.91 EOS per kilobyte, which was set on July 3rd. The last few days it has been trading in the range of 0.26 to 0.36 EOS per kilobyte. You can follow the live price at marketstack.io. The link is in the show notes below. Block.one has been hard at work attracting talented leaders and world-renowned investors. You can see the full set of press releases in the announcements section of the Block.one website. The link is in the show notes below. Most recently, on July 16th, Block.one announced closing an investment round with Peter Thiel, the famous venture capitalist who co-founded PayPal and was an early investor in Facebook, among other famous Silicon Valley companies. Having Peter Thiel involved in Block.one ought to bring some positive attention to EOS. We will continue to monitor this and share any press coverage in future episodes. In dApps and Airdrops news, the ONO social network is in the process of launching their beta app on EOS. The caveat here is that the ONO dApp is not going to be running on the EOS mainnet. Instead, they are going to run their own mainnet using the EOS.io software, but solely for the ONO app. The reasoning for launching their own mainnet was due to a rapidly growing user base of 338,000 people and counting. ONO wanted an option where they could grow autonomously and more economically. ONO is planning to use the same EOS.io code, so they are not considering this a fork like we described earlier with the Telos network, where Telos is in fact making changes to the code. But this does mean that ONO will have its own set of block producers. They are planning to have a public, decentralized set of elected block producers just like the EOS mainnet, but the details have not been released yet as to when the selection will be held nor how to participate. The launch that is currently underway will run on an internal EOS testnet, and they plan to migrate to the public, decentralized ONO blockchain at a later date. There is a link to an interview with ONO in the show notes below, where they discuss their decision to use a separate EOS mainnet. Moving on to airdrops. The Everipedia airdrop went out on July 12th in a 5.1 to 1 ratio, meaning EOS token holders received 5.1 tokens for every one EOS token held. 5.1 IQ tokens for every one EOS token held. As discussed in last week's episode, Everipedia is a Wikipedia built on top of blockchain, where the IQ tokens will be used to incentivize content creators and moderators. This is a well-funded company and was the first to announce their plans to use the airdrop model, arguably responsible for setting the trend we are seeing in airdrops today. Everipedia procured much of their RAM in the early days of the EOS launch, so while it still takes around $200,000 worth of EOS RAM to perform an airdrop, this wasn't much of an issue for Everipedia as they locked it in at an earlier time. Everipedia was the only airdrop in the last week, and it stands to reason that the RAM price continues to be a non-starter for many teams who are planning to airdrop as a means of initial fundraising. And that brings us to our featured EOS project of the week. Anybody who has done some coding in their day has probably come across a site called Stack Overflow. Whether you've forgotten the syntax of a for loop in JavaScript, or you're setting up Lambdas in AWS and get a strange error message, Googling your issue is bound to bring up a top result from stackoverflow.com. Stack Overflow provides a question-answer format where software developers can post questions and get responses from fellow coders on how best to solve their problem. But what is the motivation to contribute to a site like Stack Overflow? The answer is primarily reputation. Participants earn points and badges and the respect of their peers. But there's currently not a direct way for participants in question-answer site to earn real hard cash by participating on the platform. That's why we have chosen QOQO as this week's EOS Project of the Week. QOQO, spelled QOQO, is a question-answer platform like a Stack Overflow where participants can earn tokens by asking questions or providing answers. While reputation will still come into play, the ability to earn tokens takes the question-answer platform to a whole new level. How will the Stack Overflows of the world compete when their contributors can go next door and get paid for their contributions? The simple answer is, unless they adapt, they won't be able to. This is what's so exciting about EOS and the dApps being built on top of it. It's about to disrupt a wide range of status quo applications on the internet. And the question-answer use case has some obvious benefits to being tokenized like the dApp being built by QOQO. It's very possible that in the near future, experts in certain fields will be able to earn a living just by participating on social networking platforms like this one. We should clarify that QOQO is not geared just towards coders the way Stack Overflow is. QOQO is a general-purpose question-answer platform. But if QOQO does offer some simple code formatting functionality in their site, we could see it getting some early adoption from the EOS community of dApp developers as an alternative to Stack Overflow. We'd like to encourage the EOS community to rally behind QOQO and be the early adopters of this site. QOQO could become the de facto platform where any newcomers to EOS go to get their questions answered, similar to how Steemit primarily had crypto-related content in their early days. According to QOQO's Twitter profile, we can expect an airdrop coming soon. We'll be watching this exciting project closely and report on further developments in future episodes. A link to the QOQO website and to their profile on EOS Index are in the show notes below. Congratulations to QOQO on being selected this week's Project of the Week. If you would like to nominate a great EOS project to be recognized here, please ping us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @EOSWeekly. That's it for this week's episode of EOS Weekly. Please like and subscribe if you found this content informative and you want to continue to stay current on EOS as this revolution unfolds. Thanks, and we'll see you next week, right here on EOS Weekly.